What's happening, fandoms? Welcome back to the channel if you're new here.
We react to music videos and shows.
Today we're going to check out Rockstar's breakdown of the Secret Invasion show. This is Eric's breakdown of episode 2. And if there was ever a show where we needed some breakdown and some explaining, it's Secret Invasion, because we have no idea what the hell is going on at any point.
It's so confusing.
Too many things cannot be what they are and seem to be something they are not. And
we think they are, but they're not.
Yeah, so we really hope Eric knows more about what's going on than we do. And we really appreciate the hard work that he and his team put in to break these things down and find all the little in the background details. If you're not already familiar with New Rockstars, you should go and subscribe to them immediately, because they do this for all kinds of programs.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel as well.
Yeah, and you can subscribe to our channel, but definitely you should go subscribe to New Rockstars, because they're great.
No, always subscribe to our channel.
All right, let's dive in. Here you go. Take it away, Eric.
Rockstars, I'm Eric Voss, and this is a breakdown of Secret Invasion Episode 2. Fury's got a home life, the Groot is
what we
loose,
said.
and Brody is ready to carpet bomb us back to when he was Terrence Howard. Who can we trust? We found so many details and Easter eggs and connections that you might have missed. And thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring today's vid. More about them in a minute. And remember, New Rockstars is now 3 channels. This main channel for these Easter egg breakdowns, my channel, The Deep Dive, for deeper analyses of classic titles, and The Break Room, which is the new home of our Inside Marvel reactions in the Secret Invasion after show. So subscribe to all 3, and you can support us with some Skrull-inspired shirts at nerdriot.shop. Okay, the episode opens in Brixton, a neighborhood in London. We actually saw a poster last episode for a Brixton Community Center Island Art series. And the mural on the walls of this community center may be depicting some of Brixton's Afro-Caribbean population, which it is known for. Actually, in 1981, the Brixton riots occurred when some of these young immigrants clashed with police, which had been using racist stop and search policies. So really setting this immigrant story in Brixton comes with some real-world historical parallels. But this is in 1997, which would be 2 years after the events of Captain Marvel in 1995. This would be early in Nick Fury's era of launching his new Avengers initiative before it would be shut down by the World Security Council leading up to the 2012 Avengers events. Fury deputizing these Skrull refugees might have been part of that first wave plan of Avengers on Earth. This would be where he would make mistakes he would improve upon with S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Avengers. And note that with every Nick Fury transition, he would build things like helicarriers and now Saber, aircraft and spacecraft to take the fight more and more off the ground. Vara introduces Fury to young Gravik. In the new Avengers comics from 2015, Vara is the name of a Skrull-Kree hybrid, one of the Knights of the Infinite, who gets saved by young Avengers Hulkling and Wicked. Hulkling is also half Skrull. And Vara seems to be the same Skrull that Fury later marries, Priscilla Fury, played by Charlene Woodard. Now, Vara isn't listed in the credits, but this Skrull does have a similar height and voice to that of Woodard.
His parents were killed in the last stand against the Kree.
Wow.
Aren't you forgetting something?
Fury does the Skrull gesture of touching foreheads, which he did with Talos last episode, and we saw Talos do with his family in Captain Marvel. Vara says Gravik's parents died in the last stand against the Kree. In Captain Marvel, we learn that the Kree destroyed the Skrull homeworld of Skrullos after the Skrulls refused to submit to the rule of the Kree Empire. And we saw some of that destruction and the escape in the opening title imagery. Ever since, the Skrulls have been a nomadic race, but the Skrull and the Kree remain locked in a kind of shadow war that was hinted at in Spider-Man Far From Home.
I thought Kree having sleeper cells was top secret information.
Nick.
Fury says,
He's a child.
Only to human eyes.
Talos last episode indicated that the Skrull maturation and lifespan is different than that of humanity.
Yeah, they live
much
a lot
longer.
longer.
But it sounds like they mature much sooner. So we can also apply that early maturity to Gaia in Captain Marvel. The moment when she was on the space station and saw some Kree get shot. The violence she saw was witnessed by someone with more of an adult context of what it meant. Notice how Vara is wearing this interesting ring on her right hand. We don't see that ring on Priscilla's finger later, which is odd because Priscilla seems pretty strict about the rings that these two have to wear. But maybe this old one represented a union in her past life on Skrullos. Fury asks the Skrulls to take on human faces as he promises to find them a new home. Using Earth as a refugee colony will also be what the Asgardians of New Asgard do in Endgame and Thor Love and Thunder. And in Wakanda Forever, there was a news ticker reporting that President Britain signed a trade agreement with New Asgard. And there was no expectation that the Asgardians assimilate or changed anything about themselves, as I guess they look humanoid enough and drink Asgardian ale and eat Thanos-themed ice cream and do Old Spice commercials. So this expectation for the the Skrulls represents the way some ethnic and immigrant groups are expected to hide or erase their heritage while others get to celebrate theirs. Soren here is played by Kate Braithwaite in her Skrull form, and Charlotte Baker in her human form, and Captain Marvel in A Far From Home, she was played by Sharon Blynn, and that was only ever a Skrull form because we never saw the human form besides Maria Hill. In the aftermath of the Russian Unity Day attack, Maria Hill is definitely dead, folks, since she does not revert here to Skrull form. I don't think there's any hope for Tahiti from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. either. This episode shows us her casket with an American flag draped over it, an angry mother. They would not go to these dramatic lengths if they intended Maria Hill death to be a fake out. Let's not do the thing that we do in every Marvel show and just overthink the wrong things. There's only 6 episodes of this, and obviously they're setting up bigger mysteries.
6 episodes.
Maria's still alive.
That's the Skrull Brogan in disguise as human says,
Maria Truther.
I'm an American.
See, it's only 6 episodes.
Yes, he says, I'm an American over and over and over again because Brogan really wants these Russians to think it was an American who did this to raise the tensions between these powers. The guy who grabs Fury shapeshifts back into Talos, and I just like visually how they use the rising window to help with the visual effect of the transition. Like by the time the glass is up, it's mostly just Talos, but with just a few final bits shifting left.
That's pretty
Disguised
cool.
as a blonde woman, Talos tells the Russian soldiers that finding a black American on a train from Moscow to Poland is less likely than finding aliens. Really
Which she
pushing
just
aliens,
did.
Talos. I was reminded of how Eames in Inception uses a blonde woman as a disguise to trick Fisher, based on the woman in the red dress in The Matrix, and Inception also begins with a heist where? In a train car. But the sign on the seat behind Fury translates to Moscow to Warsaw, and the name of the train line translates to Soaring Owl. An owl being important imagery for Nick Fury as a statue for his hidden camera lens spying on Sonya Fallsworth. Fury tells Talos about his childhood in Alabama, taking long train rides with his mom to Detroit, and having to ride in a segregated train car and play a game called Tell Me Something I Don't Know.
One time she said, tell me something I don't know about
I like
you
that.
and Susie.
He says that.
Me and Susie had a standing game of doctor. We've been playing behind Old Man Jackson's barn.
Old Man Jackson, nod to Samuel L. Jackson himself. Fury explains that whenever he'd say a crazy lie, that would tell his mom that he was hiding a greater lie. This recalls a story that Nick Fury told about his grandpa back in Captain America Winter Soldier.
Every week some punk would say, what's in the bag? What'd he do? He'd show him. Bunch of crumpled ones and a loaded .22 Magnum. Granddad loved people, but he didn't trust them very much.
So really it was Fury growing up in the segregated South that gave him multiple influences for not trusting people. Fury uses the game on Talos to learn that all 1 million of the Skrulls that fled Skrullos after it was destroyed by the Kree settled on Earth, and most of them after the blip in the past few years while Fury was on Saber. So that post-blip homeless crisis that affected humans on Earth and all these other titles is also affecting Skrulls, particularly across the universe. And I point this out because nowhere is now supposed to be a welcoming refugee colony in the MCU in space, so why didn't more Skrulls go there? Well, maybe some did. We do find out in a second about other Skrull colonies, but hey, maybe nowhere ain't that tolerant. It is a population of mostly Xandarians. Maybe they're as intolerant to Skrulls as Terrans are. Really, I think it was just Gravik's appeal as a strong military leader that attracted more Skrulls to Earth than to anywhere else. Taylor says that every Skrull that isn't in Emperor Drogi's colony, they answered. So, in the Secret Invasion comics, Drogi Fenu-Idu, spelled a little bit differently, is the head priest of sciences who studied captured members of the Illuminati and discovers and invents Super Skrulls, which are Skrulls that can mimic the powers and the appearances of those they impersonate. And that is what seems to be the plot in the works revealed later this episode. We don't know if the Emperor Drogi that Talos mentions here is part of that operation. He just seems to be the current galactic leader of the Skrulls. And the fact that they call him Emperor means that in their eyes, they still view their race as part of a dynastic empire. They still have some pride in their old ways. Talos says that he wants humans and Skrulls to coexist, but Fury shoots back.
Humans can't coexist with each other, Talos. You've been here long enough to know that. We've been at war with each other since we could walk upright. There is not enough room or tolerance on this planet for another species.
Yeah, Fury's experiences with racism have set him up with pessimism for human tolerance, and you cannot blame him. Back in London, Maria Hill's mother, Elizabeth, oversees the transfer of her corpse draped in an American flag. There's another woman with her, dressed in civilian attire. I'm not sure who this is. Maybe a friend or a partner or someone provided by the US government to be a kind of grief counselor. Not really sure. But Fury having to face his grieving mother, for one, reminds me of Brody in Jaws facing Mrs. Keaton, but in the MCU, totally reminds me of Tony Stark having to face Miriam Sharp in Captain America Civil War. It's just rare that we meet the parents of these people that are killed in the conflicts.
I was going to say the same thing.
These MCU heroes to take responsibility for all their avenging. Also, Fury is back in the skull cap, no glasses compared to the frames in the different hat he wore on the train. So far we see like 2 Furies. There's a lower status, humbler Fury outfit and the more pointed confrontational look, where he's got lenses with special infrared sensors where he might be able to like detect more things about people. A news montage shows CUV News, a fictional outlet in the MCU that appeared on screens in Sword Age HQ in WandaVision. We learned some of the world leaders currently in the MCU. UK Prime Minister Pamela Lawton, NATO Secretary General Sergio
they're
Costani,
all
who seems to be that
Skrulls.
suited government figure who appears in the opening title imagery, and then FXN News, probably a version of Fox News, no doubt, hosted by Chris Stearns, a pundit in the vein of Sean Hannity, played by Christopher McDonald, who played Shooter McGavin in Happy Gilmore, between him and Bradley Whitford as Peggy Carter's boss, from 90s Adam Sandler comedies playing MCU assholes. I love it. Gravik tells Gaia that he wanted to see just how much of Fury was left.
It's just vapors. Old.
Which recalls Fury's dusting that we flashed back to last episode, that at the end of Infinity War, like Sonya Falsworth, Gravik is saying that moment changed Fury forever, that not all of the Spy Master faded back.
You don't punish a man by giving him what he wants.
Yes, and I'm sorry to link everything back to Thanos, but it does recall Thor chopping off Thanos' head at the start of Endgame, trying to punish the Mad Titan by giving him the death that he really wanted. It also echoes T'Challa's punishment of Zemo, refusing to let him die at the end of Civil War. As they pull up to the building, again, we see purple lighting mixing with the green tones of the street and the car visor to give the setting the green and purple tone of the Skrull's skin and blood, and inside, it's all green. Green carpet, green wallpaper, not even trying to hide their true colors. We meet the Skrull Council, which includes the UK Prime Minister, the NATO Secretary General, and the media pundit, plus two others, Shirley Cigar and Christopher Go, playing a character credited as Jack Hyuk Bin, maybe a celebrity or a tech leader of some kind. I assume we'll find out in future episodes. In the Secret Invasion comics, several politicians and public figures, including Barack Obama, John McCain, and Stephen Colbert, are confirmed to be Skrulls. Gravik accuses them of drinking man's wine. Gaia told Beto last episode that they drink Skrull wine, yet we saw Gravik plopping 3 cubes of human sugar and water in his tea, but he didn't sip the tea, so maybe he was just wasting it. Gravik says he prefers dogs to humans because
They don't lock each other up in cages. They don't pimp, poison. They don't go out of their way to degrade and destroy their own habitat.
A naive reading of human history.
It's the only reading of human history.
what an indictment. Ultron came to the same conclusion, remember? It's interesting how Gravik nods to the conservative media pundit for lock each other up in cages, as that guy's talking points would have defended mass incarceration most likely, and as a resident of New Skrullos and in an irradiated nuclear plant, Gravik can see how destructive human industry is. But you know, really he should blame the extraterrestrial eternal Fastos for that one. Gravik makes his case in the Skrull language, but then switches back to English for...
I think it's a war. I think it's a
war. I wonder if the English word for war is more powerful than the Skrull word for it, since the Skrulls lost in their resistance against the Kree. The NATO Secretary General asks,
and what happens if the Avengers return?
You don't think I thought about that?
Yes, he's referring to his Super Skrull program to make Groots, Cull Obsidians, Extremis Soldiers, and Frost Giants out of themselves. We'll learn more about that later. The UK Prime Minister nominates Gravik to the wartime leader position, Skrull General, like Senator Binks nominating Senator Palpatine to have emergency wartime powers, and now Gravik is the Senate. Gravik allows Shirley to leave unharmed despite her dissension, which indicates that he knows Talos will learn about this.
Yeah, I was
surprised
when she was allowed to leave.
Skrullos' radioactive shantytown to a hero's welcome, and he tells this one woman,
without you, this wouldn't be possible.
Yeah, I feel like he's actually doing this for Gaia. Like a kind of David Koresh cult vibe going on here. Like maybe he's grooming another younger female to make Gaia feel less important. Either way, I don't think he really means when he says that without her he couldn't have done this. Gaia sees how Gravik is keeping her out of the loop. She follows him and Pagon into an old reactor plant control room looking a lot like the one at Chernobyl. Here they're building these energy fields that I assume will radiate Skrulls into Super Skrulls. The process is being overseen by a couple named the Daltons. There is a Charles Dalton in the comics who's a member of the MI-13 who becomes a political liaison for S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm not sure if it's connected, but Dalton and Pagon talk about the failure of the recent harvests, which the subtitles capitalize the H on, suggesting that the Skrulls see this process of gathering donor DNA as a kind of sacred process, maybe something that they have a divine right to. Rhodey gets grilled by the other heads of state. The file photos they have of Fury on the screen include one of Fury when he was younger. Judging by the jacket, looks like a publicity still from Avengers Age of Ultron. And let's quickly break down his dossier. His aliases include nicknames listed on his wiki page: Nick Fury, 100% red-blooded Earthman, Mr. Furry, Foxtrot, Jacob Veach, which is an alias Nick Fury used for a holding company in Captain America Winter Soldier, then One-Eye Man, Son of a Bitch, and the Most Dangerous Man. We also see his associations, which include the US Army, S.H.I.E.L.D., CIA, Project Pegasus, remember that was a Tesseract research project that we saw at the beginning of 2012 Avengers and Captain Marvel, and Nick Fury's crew, which was the nickname of Fury's post-S.H.I.E.L.D. associates that we saw in Age of Ultron. I want to quickly thank our team of researchers, including MT, Eric Francisco, Gina Ippolito, Jordan Morris, and Noah Chen for helping me ID these and a lot of other cool stuff in this breakdown. Prime Minister Lawton wears a green necklace. These Skrulls cannot help but show off their verdigris. I'm going to assume that everyone wearing green flair on this dais, like the leader to the left of France, the African leader behind Italy. These guys ain't just Irish. When Rhodey doubts the Russian intel, the diplomat from Slovakia,
Respectfully, Prime Minister, I can't take the authenticity of Russian-supplied photos at face value. Slovakia rolls its eyes at me one more time, I'm gonna put on the suit and carpet bomb it.
Rhodey went from the calm voice of reason in Tony Stark's Senate hearings in Iron Man 2 to speaking like the Boom Boom Phase 1 Iron Man himself. Rhodey reminds Fury that his other suit is made of titanium. The War Machine suit branched from the Iron Man line at the heavily armored Mark II phase, and at that point, Tony was still building his suits from a gold titanium alloy. At the tavern, Fury has changed back into his business mode attire, glasses, and the fedora hat. Remember, these are the super spy glasses with augmented displays and infrared scanners, so Fury might be wearing them to detect things like an elevated heart rate to see if Rhodey is lying about being a Skrull. And that also might be why Nick Fury was wearing the glasses with Talos earlier on the train. He's only wearing them when he's trying to figure out the secrets of the person he's talking to. Rhodey threatens to hand Fury back over to the Russians.
That's interesting.
Colonel Rhodes?
Now, Nick Fury's rank in the army was Colonel, but presumably former S.H.I.E.L.D. director and current Saber director might outrank whatever Rhodey is. At this moment, we still don't know Rhodey's title. I'm wondering if it's National Security Advisor, maybe Secretary of Defense, because he doesn't really have the charm or the diplomacy of a UN ambassador. Meanwhile, Toby Ziegler is Secretary of State. Rhodey serves Fury a bourbon, which Fury told Falsworth last episode was his drink of choice, and Fury warns Rhodey about a global network of spies.
Hydra?
Yeah, if Hydra was a bunch of green guys who could shapeshift into your daddy.
Yes, Hydra would be the go-to assumption because that was the network they all had to deal with in Captain America the Winter Soldier. Hydra went on to be nasty threats in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but as of Age of Ultron, the Hydra threat was thought to be mostly dealt with in the MCU, though in later episodes of What If, the implication is that the Zola algorithm might still be living on in a computer terminal in Siberia. Rhodey indicates that he's known about Skrulls for a while, though.
About 15 years ago, I was part of an eyes-only top-secret presentation.
So, 15 years prior would be around 2010, 2011, if we assume that this show is set in 2025 to 2026. So this presentation that Rhodey saw would be after Rhodey became War Machine as he was transitioning into his Iron Patriot role for the government that we saw in Iron Man 3. Chances are, if Rhodey knew about Skrulls, so did Tony Stark. So, is Rhodey a Skrull? Well, in my view, he's still highly Skrull-spicious. But I think if the show planned to later reveal him as a Skrull, they would have left some breadcrumb in this moment besides this fairly by-the-books government intel backstory. Really, the big arguments against Rhodey being a Skrull are, one, he was incapacitated in Civil War and likely would have reverted then, and two, if the MCU were to say Rhodey's heartbreak at the moment of Tony Stark's death in Endgame wasn't the real Rhodey in that moment, that just might be stomping on sacred ground for too many MCU fans. And I just don't think a hypothetical scene of a real Rhodey waking up from a fracking pod to Fury telling him that Tony's dead and then reacting then will hit as hard to MC viewers than that moment in Endgame, especially since we're learning a lot of people are not watching this show. And Avengers Endgame is like one of the top 3 biggest movies of all time. Rhodey mentions that the Skrulls sent a few light ships crashing down to Earth. This might be the answer to a long-running MCU mystery of what that ship was that crashed into the ocean at the end of Age of Ultron that wasn't Hulk in the Quinjet.
One of our tech boys flagged this. Splashed down in the Banda Sea. Could be the Quinjet, but with Stark's stealth tech, we still can't track the damn thing.
So presumably, this could have been one of the Skrull cruisers, like the one that brought Bruce Banner back to get his son that we saw in She-Hulk. Fury explains why calling the Avengers is a bad idea.
No, we can't jump the gun on that. You know, we get them in a fight with the Skrulls, and next thing you know, they find themselves duplicated and turned into terrorists.
And I just gotta say, I love this scene so much. It's been my favorite moment on the show so far, and it's mostly for how real these two men get with each other.
Every ounce of power we wrestle from the vice grip of the mediocre Alexander Pierces who run this world.
And it's all an allegory for...
Yeah, shots fired. And he's totally right. Alexander Pierce sucked as a leader. Part of their backstory was that in Bogota, Pierce planned to negotiate with rebels who freaking kidnapped his daughter. And only Fury's heroic plan to rescue her is the reason he got back alive. And that's what put Fury on the path to becoming director of S.H.I.E.L.D. But Rhodey shoots back to Fury's request to help a brother out, saying that the point of their opportunity is to hold each other accountable when they fail. And he fires Fury. Both of these men are stubborn, and both of them are coming from rational places. James Rhodes talking as a company man that he has always been in this universe trying to affect change from within the system. And Nick Fury being the guy who has always been on the outside, and that's where he's been most effective, as he says here.
I'm Nick Fury.
That was a great line.
I'm out.
I'm in.
I'm in.
Yeah, that's...
Hell yes! This has really been what Fury has wanted to yell at everyone on the show. Just because he's been off-world on Saber doesn't mean he's out of the game. And in fact, he's very much playing the game. So Falsworth picks the lock of the Russian butcher shop and correctly applies a Skrull test of severing Brogan's finger. In addition to the skin turning green, I like how the dripping blood turns purple. Now, it is possible that Falsworth is herself a Skrull. She could just be testing to find out everything Brogan told the Russians. She is wearing green here, but I think if she is a Skrull, she probably does not belong to Gravik's group. She would be a Skrull playing her own game. So we're all going to keep a close eye on Sonya Falsworth. Gaia sneaks around the Skrull base, and in the background is a painting of an old Soviet leader. I think this might be Konstantin Chernenko, who was only Secretary General from April of 1984 to March 1985, suggesting that this plant might have been decommissioned just a year or two before the Chernobyl incident in 1986. Rosa Dalton's file lists active pod number 19, which might be referring to what fracking pod the human version of Rosa Dalton is stored in. But then the big MCU Easter eggs this episode come right here. The samples of Marvel creatures the Skrulls have been harvesting DNA from, starting with Groot, listed as species Flora Colossus, humanoid plant, Planet X. That was Groot's listed homeworld in Guardians of the Galaxy. Now the image says that this sample was acquired from Earth, so presumably this could have been recovered from the Battle of Wakanda or the Battle of Earth in New York. Then Frost Beast, Jotunheimense, carnivorous reptomammal. We saw these Frost Beasts in Jotunheim in the first Thor movie, and then in the events of 2013's Thor the Dark World. A Frost Beast was transported to Earth from the events of the Convergence, so presumably this is that same one. Cull Obsidian, species unknown. Remember Cull Obsidian? That was Thanos' beefy minion in the Black Order in Infinity War, whose arm got chopped off by Wong via a portal, and then hacky sacked by Bruce Banner. This photo seems to be showing that same severed hand on ice. And then Extremis, found from humans on Earth. Remember them? They were the fiery, combustible, limb-regenerating test subjects of Aldrich Killian in Iron Man 3, one of whom recently showed up again in the Fighting Club in Shang-Chi. All of these list Terra as C-53, which was Earth's planetary designation as of Captain Marvel. And all of their DNA is listed as deoxyribonucleic acid-based, deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, suggesting, though, that there might be some beings in the universe out there that are not based in DNA and would be impossible for Skrulls to replicate. For example, do Eternals have synthetic DNA? Could a Skrull replicate a Celestial? Does a gooey dope from Quantumania Veb have DNA? Just an interesting thing to think about. Carbon versus silicon-based life forms. Now, of course, the plot here is the generation of Super Skrulls, which in the comics are Skrulls that can replicate both the appearance and the powers of enhanced beings. And it could be possible here that the specific creatures chosen aren't just random, that they start to at least line up with the powers similar to those of the Fantastic Four, who are among the superheroes that the Skrulls replicate in the comics. Like Groot can stretch out like Reed Richards does, Extremis fires up like Johnny Storm does, Cull Obsidian is roughly the power set of Ben Grimm, and the parallel kind of drops off after that. I don't know, I just thought it'd be cool if they had Ava Starr's DNA, Ghost from Ant-Man the Wasp, so that one of these abilities could be invisibility and phase shifting to line up with Sue Storm, but there could be others, we'll see. Okay, Falsworth injects Brogan with a serum that boils his blood, which is a bit similar to how Extremis works. While Skrulls are resistant to radiation, this could be one thing that disrupts their inner chemistry. Brogan confesses that the Daltons are leading the science for the Super Skrulls program, and Falsworth seems to be more aware of this operation, just wants a name to confirm her suspicions. Gravik shoots the Russian guard right as he was on the downward swing to chop the sausage. I guess kind of like how Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade times his clanging in the Venice library floor with that librarian stamping the books. It's just weird how Gravik holds a doorbell, but that guard did completely fall back into the shelves and made a huge crash sound, so I don't know who he's kidding here. And as Gravik slaughters the men like the meat carcasses that surround them, Falsworth goes down the escape hatch.
Right.
But I guess Skrulls are strong.
Referring to Dostoevsky's best-known work, Crime and Punishment, in which the character Raskolnikov murders an elderly pawnbroker, steals her wares, and must escape down into the floor and back to his own small apartment. So Falsworth knows that she's dooming Brogan to death here, because his Skrulls will assume he talked. As they extract Brogan, Gaia hides in the alley, speaking Russian into the phone, likely reporting the location of their Skrull safe house. So Gravik will assume it was Brogan who told them and killed Brogan, which would piss off Pagon, who initiated Brogan and wanted to keep him alive, which I guess is Gaia's plan for further driving a wedge between Gravik and Pagon after earlier overhearing Pagon say our fearless leader isn't always right. As I pointed out before with the opening credits imagery, the bishop transitions into the queen and transitions into the king. And it's all happening on one side of the chessboard, the Skrull side. In the final sequence of the episode, Fury drives out to a home in the UK countryside where
this is what I want to know about.
I believe Vara from the opening scene chops foods that are all green. If this is Vara, I think we can assume that Fury knows his wife is a Skrull, even though she reverts to human form when he walks through the door. Fury did mention having a wife in Winter Soldier, but we didn't know if he was telling the truth or not back then.
My wife kicked me out.
Didn't know you were married.
A lot of things you don't know about me.
In their house as he walks in are abstract paintings of humans taking different forms, reminding us of a Skrull mid-transformation. Also interesting how the books on the shelves all seem to be arranged by color. Like there's a blue shelf, a green shelf, an orange shelf, a red shelf, like the show
that
itself.
is
and the
weird.
color-coordinated Skrulls. Whoever put these books on the shelf is very color-coordinated. But of all the different disguises Fury wears this episode, the disguise of an unmarried man is the one that Fury must drop when he comes home. Like superheroes wearing masks to protect those they love, Fury keeps his wedding ring off to prevent any enemies thinking he has a wife and going out looking for her. Otis Redding's Try a Little Tenderness plays, 60s soul music always being a favorite of Fury's after he cited the Marvelettes' Wait a Minute, Mr. Postman and Captain Marvel. And as this episode fades to black, Otis Redding's lyrics say, squeeze her, don't tease her, never leave her. Had Fury left his wife behind on Earth while he was on Saber? Or did she join him on that space station? Was she the Skrull who took his shoes? Fury, maybe it was just your wife cleaning up after you. Hey, subscribe to New
All
That's
right.
pretty cool.
Man, so much detail in there. Did you pick out anything particular that was your favorite? I'll let you go first.
It's just all the green colors that they wear.
The color codes. I didn't notice that.
I didn't either.
The first time through, but it totally makes sense. They're like, the Skrulls are almost drawn, it seems, to have some green that they show. That was a good one. I think that I'm starting to suspect that maybe when we switch, that we have the different versions of Fury, you know, where he's all dressed up nice, where he's all like looking like a hobo. Maybe those are two different people. You know, because
never know.
We've never seen him change clothing or anything, go into one place looking one way and come out of that same place.
Right.
They could totally be one is a Skrull and one is Fury, because there's too much Skrull going on for Nick Fury not to be a Skrull.
Right.
Like, he's just got to be a Skrull. And I loved the detail about his glasses. I didn't think about that too much, but yes, he's probably using his glasses to get details of things. Man, I am super sad to hear Eric say Maria is dead, because I don't want her to be dead.
I doubt it. She's dead. Maybe they just proclaim that she's dead, and then she'll come back later on.
But he's right. They don't go to such deep lengths on a character that's not dead.
You never know.
Usually, I don't think.
Never know.
Ah, man.
Well, thank you again for tuning into our channel. Don't forget to give your love and support to
New Rockstars.
Exactly. And the link will be in our description below. Thank you for loving our channel and liking our videos to get the algorithm going. Thank you for subscribing to our small mighty channel to help us grow to 30K.
Yeah.
Thank you again, and see you in the next video.